I know a lot of you. My name is Karen Kiefer from C21 Center, and thank you for coming to Agape Latte tonight. I know everyone's so busy and so stressed, but at least you can have a cup of coffee and some cake and take away some wisdom from 3 of our alums. Before we do that, I just want to say that this Agape Latte is always so bittersweet because it's the last one of the year, but it's also the last one for seniors. And I just want to thank a couple of seniors that have been so much a part of our Agape Latte family for the past 4 years. So I'm going to call them up. Sasha Hawk, Leah Nelligan, and then we have Sarah Hansman, and Layla. Look at Layla. Come on up. Avocado. And then are there any other seniors that are on our Agape Latte student board that are here? Is that okay? So I just want to say that these students give so much to this program, and it's not just the 6 Agape Lattes that we do each year, but it's the Expresso Your Faith Week in September, 30 events, and then it's the things we do in between Agape Latte, like the planning the Christmas Agape Latte, and planning the Valentine campaign, and then planning the Easter egg hunt, and planning the Lenten friendship card campaign. It goes on and on and on. So I just hope that you'll give them a warm thank you and some applause, because they certainly deserve it. And thank you for being a part of our family. Don't go. You're out of here. But anyway, and we invite any of you that are interested in becoming part of our student board. Just all you have to do is email agapelatte@bc.edu and become a member and get involved. So thank you. Yay. Why don't we call up our speakers now and get the show rolling here. So Brendan, yep. So we have Brendan Carey, class of 2012. We have Megan Krakowiak, also class of 2012. John Walsh, class of 2017. And woo! Welcome back to the Heights. For some of you, it's familiar. And for others, Brendan was just saying he was having dinner on Lower with his cousins, and he can't even believe how much things have changed. When you were at BC, you said there was no Snapchat, no Instagram, no a lot of things. But anyway, this particular Agape Latte is special because it's senior night and it's for everyone, but it's an opportunity to invite back alums so that they can share a story about times in their life after they've left the Heights that they've seen God working. So tonight we decided to have 3 alums, and they're each going to speak for about 8 minutes, and they're going to tell you their stories. So I'm going to start with Brendan, who's actually going to introduce John, and then they're going to go down the line. So here you go.
Before we do that, do you mind if we give a big round of applause to Karen Kiefer? She'll be succeeding our friend Tom Groom as director of the Church and 21st Century Center. So we could not be luckier to have her, and she's really the lifeblood of this program in C21 Agape Latte. So one more round of applause for Karen Kiefer. We couldn't be happier for her.
So I'm going to introduce John, which from a few minutes ago, looks like a lot of you already know him. But John is a graduate of the class of 2017, a Massachusetts native, and the oldest of 5 siblings in his family. During his 4 years at BC, John participated in the For Boston, Pulse, and Appalachia volunteer programs, was a member of the Emerging Leader and Student Admissions programs, and ultimately found his love for film and storytelling through his 3 years serving on our very own Agape Latte student board. He graduated with a degree in accounting from CSOM, as well as a major in theology and a minor in film studies from the Marcy College of Arts and Sciences, and is now the creative producer for the Office of University Communications here at BC. John produces videos for social media and the web, and most recently produced the Harry Potter themed admissions video sent to the incoming class of 2022. He currently lives at home in Franklin, Massachusetts with his family and takes classes at night in the BC MBA program. Welcome, John.
Thanks, Brendan, and thanks so much for having me, guys. This Agape Latte meant so much to me, and it's a real honor to be back here speaking, especially with these two panelists. So I think my story really starts my sophomore year. I went on halftime, which probably many of you have gone on, and I was very fortunate that one of my greatest mentors here at BC was Father Michael Himes. And if you aren't familiar, that whole retreat is based on his 3 questions. And I felt like I let the guy down because I had no idea how to answer them. The 3 questions are, what brings you joy, what are you good at, and who does the world need you to be? And I actually met Megan on that trip. She was leading the whole halftime retreat and did for many years. So I knew how to answer those questions, I guess, in friendships or in my family, but I had no idea how to unite those into a career. It just didn't seem to line up. When I was in high school, I played basketball. I was the campus ministry guy as well, and I did programs much like this with Agape Latte. And I had never touched a camera. My mom would always take pictures at my basketball games of my brother and I, who's here in this room. And I always appreciated photos, but never occurred to me to say, hey, maybe I should learn how to take those photos as well. I was very fortunate to come to BC. I always dreamed of coming here. And I felt like I needed to major in something like a lot of you probably feel that could pay back the expensive tuition here and could pay back loans and would kind of allow me to give back to the family and to the people that had given me the chance to come to BC. So I was in CSOM. I actually came in as an accounting major, and I tried to do pre-med, which is a joke in itself. I'd broken a lot of bones growing up, thought I'd love to be a doctor, looked up to my uncle. It was pretty quick that wasn't going to work out. So here I am as an accounting major, and I'm on halftime, and I had a few different experiences that I couldn't really make sense of, and especially was with Agape Latte. When I was a sophomore, I was fortunate enough to, one of my friends, Megan Hilger, who used to be a part of the program, said, hey, why don't you come to this Agape Latte meeting? It's on a Tuesday afternoon. It's at 3 p.m., and she texted me at 1. So I just went, and I remember they were spitballing ideas for how can we promote Espresso Your Faith Week. And we have it in September. It's 30 different events, and students are a part of it in a lot of different ways. And it was the most random suggestion, but someone had a Saint Iggy tattoo. And at the time, Fancy by Iggy Azalea was popular. So I stupidly said, like, IGGY, like, why don't we make a music video? And thank God we didn't make a fancy music video. We ended up deciding on Shake It Off. And I'll never forget, I was with Karen, and we said, let's try and do this. Let's try and make this video. And Elizabeth, who's closely involved with Agape Latte, her brother John and I, we went around campus. I remember I was in Lower, and I kind of imagined a couple of the shots, like, let's have Fuego, who had just won Showdown. Could they kind of imitate Taylor Swift's End Shot? Father Himes, who's a mentor of mine, can I sneak him in the video somehow? Thank you. Sexual Chocolate is such a cool dance group on campus. Let's put them in BAPS. Let's put them on the tables. And luckily, all these people started answering the emails. I had never done video before, and I was just a student emailing a lot of these groups. And I think it speaks to the power of the BC community. Like, there's so many good people that they went and danced on a camera, and people I never met before, athletic directors, teachers, professors, and we had such a great week. And we were really, I think it was a reflection of Agape Latte and what this community means. And so we were really fortunate. It was a fun video, and Taylor Swift happened to see it, and she tweeted it, which was kind of a really cool moment. But a year later, it never occurred to me that I would do video. Like, it just didn't register at all. I'm in these accounting classes, and of course, running around with a camera and begging people to dance is a lot more fun than your accounting problem sets. And it was in my junior year I started taking the real hard courses, and Fast 1, Fast 2, and man, I was getting killed in them, and I really didn't like them. And I remember, and all of a sudden, a couple things really happened, because I wasn't sure how to make sense of all this. in the November of my junior year, I was living on South Street, and there's been so many BC students who this has happened to. Our apartment gets broken into while I'm at the Notre Dame Fenway game, and it was a bummer. I mean, they took my laundry quarters. Come on, like why, everything. But it's funny, the one thing that wasn't taken was this really lousy Sony camcorder I had, like the ones that your parents, if they filmed Christmas morning or basketball games, like a little handheld one, and it was literally on my pillow when I came in. And it's funny because that year, my mom, who had always taken those photos, she's here now, I said, why don't I make a Christmas video for her? Someone who I admire and love, and couldn't come up with a very good idea for a Christmas video, so I interviewed my cousins and my brother, and reluctantly my sister. She was really upset about the fact she'd be on camera. And it was a cool moment to my mom, who'd always loved photography, to give her this video and see the look on her face and how much it meant to her. And so that was the first video I had done, and said, mate, I actually do kind of like this. And then all of a sudden I go on Appalachia, and I bring along this camcorder, and there's this man named William England who we meet on the trip. He opens up his whole life to us. He was formerly homeless. He was living in an abandoned coal mine, and he was incredible. He shared this with our group. So I have this camera, and I say, well, hey, William, would you ever share this? Could I interview you? And not only does he pour his heart out to us, but he brings us to the spot where he used to live, where he was formerly homeless. For the first time since he was rescued, these two policemen in Clay County, Kentucky, had seen him on the streets. And one of them said he promised his wife overnight, he's like, I'm going to go get that guy in the morning, I'm going to find him. And they literally saved his life. He was in a really tough place. And he brought us back there for the first time. So here we are. I'm probably a terrible trip leader because we're hundreds of feet in the air on this rusting, rotting coal mine. And he's showing us his life and where he lived and the rags that are on the floor. And I came back from that trip, and I was like, man, I have to pay attention to this, and I have to start doing this. And at the same time, again, here I am with Diane Feldman in my accounting class, didn't do so hot in a quiz. Leah Nelligan and I had gone around and made this video for Agape Latte, so I was unprepared for this quiz. And Diane Feldman says to me, John, I think you need to have a come to Jesus moment, man. Like, so many people tell me that you love film, so why do you feel this need to do something that you don't love? And then that very same day, Tom Wesner, if you guys are familiar with Tom Wesner, he's probably one of the most popular professors at BC. You can never get any time with him. There's always a line of students at his door during the day. But I happened to run into him that same night at 7 p.m. It's just him. And he says to me the same thing. John, when are you going to, effing drop accounting and do what you love? And I kind of needed that kick in the butt. Like, I needed someone to kind of, that affirmation to say, hey, you have something that you should pay attention to. And so the next day he sends me this quote that I'd like to share with you because I feel like it might apply to a lot of other people in the room, especially the seniors. Until one is committed, there is hesitancy, the chance to draw back, always ineffectiveness. Concerning all acts of initiative and creation, there's one elementary truth, that the moment one definitely commits oneself, then providence moves too. All sorts of things occur to help one that would never otherwise have occurred. A whole stream of events issues from that decision, raising in one's favor all manner of unforeseen incidents and meetings and material assistance which no man could have dreamt would come his way. Whatever you can do or dream, you can. Begin it. Boldness has genius, power, and magic in it. Nothing happens until you decide. And I was really struck by that quote from Wesner, mostly because it made me realize this wasn't all about me, that there's so many, all the best things that had ever happened in my life, I never could have imagined. All the best people that would come into it, all the opportunities I'd have, I never could have imagined. And that when you want to follow your heart or your passion, it's so easy to look in the future and see all the obstacles and all the reasons why it wouldn't work out, that you forget that, think of all the people that have come into your life and all the good that's been in the past. So why wouldn't that happen if you followed your heart and followed your passion? And maybe, too, following your passion is the best way you can pay back all the people that have let you be in this position. So that's when I kind of stopped playing this game of accounting, theology John, accounting, film John, and I said, I'm gonna do this. And my senior year, I had no idea how to use a camera. I was lucky enough to start working with Sean Casey, who previously had my job. I didn't know how to use ISO, aperture, shutter speed, none of it. But I was fortunate that through Agape Latte and through a lot of the good things that came from that and doing videos that I met Jack Dunn, who said, hey, John, Sean's moving on. Would you ever be interested in working for BC? And Jack's been one of my greatest mentors, and he's an incredible advocate. And I knew that that's what I was supposed to be doing. That's what I really wanted to do. And I think there was moments of hesitation, like, is this the right decision? Because I could have worked for Ernst & Young, and I could have told you probably 5 years from now what your salary would be, what your title would be, what kind of life you could have lived. And film was the total opposite. It was this uncertainty, but this true passion and this present joy for me. And I realized that I had to follow that. I had to follow something that brought together all these disparate parts of myself and the people that I loved and the places I loved. And on that note, I want to end this talk, and I've been really happy doing that and working and doing my job here at BC and being a part of this community and capturing what I think this quote that means so much to me since I was a freshman. Some of you might be familiar with it. It's called The Opposite of Loneliness. It's an abbreviated quote from a prologue by this wonderful woman named Marina Keegan, who sadly passed away shortly after graduating from college. And she wrote this in the graduation magazine for Yale. And it's always resonated with me. And I think it really sums up what it means to go to Boston College and be a part of a community like this. We don't have a word for the opposite of loneliness, but if we did, I could say that's what I want in life. It's not quite love, and it's not quite community. It's just this feeling that there are people, an abundance of people, who are in this together, who are on your team. When this check is paid and you stay at the table, when it's 4 a.m. and no one goes to bed, that night with the guitar, that time we did, we went, we saw, we laughed, we felt. We don't have a word for the opposite of loneliness, but if we did, I'd say that's how I feel right now, here, with all of you, in love, impressed, humbled, and scared. And when I think about my faith and the things that are most important to me in that quote, I think God and what's most important in life is found in relationships and the connections you have to people and all the good things that are in life, and not ignoring the tough times in life, but always leaning on the people around you and the people who love and care about you. And I feel honored to have decided that a lot of people helped me to realize that I should just be a storyteller and spend my life trying to express that feeling and those moments of gratitude and that feeling that all of you have walking on campus and looking up at Gasson and feeling lucky to be here, to be a senior. And I feel very lucky that this community and Agape Latte helped me realize that I had this opportunity to live a life I never could have imagined for myself. I would have laughed if you told me that I would graduate and be a film producer. Like, it just was insane. It's just never what I thought I would do. So thank you for this community, for so many people, especially Karen Kiefer and so many other mentors who kind of gave me the chance to realize that. And I hope when you graduate, I'm not saying you need to jump and pursue, I don't know what that passion is for you or what it is, but I hope you'll value and cherish the relationships you have here at BC and all the people who can encourage you to follow your own heart. And that's what BC has done for me, and I couldn't be more grateful for. So with that, I have the real privilege of introducing Megan Krakowiak, who is a graduate of the class of 2012, like Brendan. She hails from the Frog Pond capital of Ohio, the Frog Jump capital of Ohio. While at BC, she was a psych major with a minor in faith, peace, and justice. Upon graduation, she moved to Kingston, Jamaica as a volunteer for a year. She returned to the Heights for her master's and worked with Halftime, Ascend, and the Camino course. She most recently was teaching ethics and world religions at a boarding high school in Rhode Island. Last summer, she relocated to Jamaica Plain and returned to BC to pursue her PhD in theology. She teaches group fitness classes at a studio in her neighborhood and spinning at the Plex. And without further ado, please join me in welcoming Megan Krakowiak.
Thank you. I just want to say thank you all for being here, because I know that there are, you probably each have a list of at least 7 things that are due like yesterday. And so I just appreciate that you're here listening to all of us. And I hope that something that we say connects or helps you figure out what you're the way that you're looking at the world. So, like John said, my name is Megan, and Karen. I help out at the Church in the 21st Century Center, and Karen asked me if I would be on a panel and talk to all of the students, but with especially graduating seniors in mind. And she said, "What do you think would be the message that you would tell them?" And I said, "It doesn't get better." And she was like, "We don't want you on the panel if that's what you're gonna say." And so I have decided that I will frame this in that when I graduated from Boston College, I thought I was a gymnast, and now I'm a really happy bowling ball. So here we go. So my senior year at BC, I was lucky enough to be asked to give a talk at the Senior Week Kairos. And so I think I'm gonna stand. Is that, yeah, I feel like I'm trying to, okay, I'm gonna stand. So I was lucky enough to give a talk on the Senior Week Kairos, and they asked me to sort of do like the why are we here talk. And so there was this gymnast who the summer of 2008, when we were coming into Boston College, was really popular, Nastia Lukin. You probably don't know who she is. Maybe you do. Karen told me that we're too old and you won't know who that is. So anyway, she was like just this fantastic gymnast, and she was always like sticking the landing and getting perfect tens. And so this joke became that like you wanted to be like Nastia and stick the landing. And so I gave this whole talk about how when I came to the end of my time at BC, I realized that I hadn't stuck the landing, but I thought it was okay. But what I can realize now, because I'm old, is that I did think, though, like in the back of my mind, that I hadn't stuck the landing, but that I would, that like the landing was coming, but it was gonna be more like a lunar landing, like I had to line it up in my telescope and then like launch myself there, and so I would land, was like the idea. So I had not stuck the landing, but I would land. So I moved to Kingston, Jamaica, and if I had to title Kingston, Jamaica as like a paper, so as a PhD student, Tom Groom can tell you this, you have to come up with a good title. So my title for the paper would be Mayhem, Mosquitoes and a Mongoose. So I moved to Kingston, Jamaica, and there was really not like a structure in place other than I had made some connections with the Sisters of Mercy and the Jesuits there. And I was bringing a friend from BC, and the two of us were like, yeah, let's go to Kingston. And so the mosquitoes are a good metaphor for the kind of consistent mayhem of just like all the little nagging things that you couldn't possibly have planned for. And if you've done any kind of service trip ever, you have an idea of what this is like, except it was like 85 degrees, 100% humidity, people were getting dengue, and I wasn't going home for a year. So like that was the mosquitoes. And then there were also there were literally mosquitoes everywhere. It was terrible. And then there were also these instances like there was really once a mongoose. Do you guys know what a mongoose is? It's like a tropical honey badger. It's like, did you ever read the children's book Rikki Tikki Tavi? Yeah, so Rikki Tikki Tavi is a mongoose, and he like eats cobras, right? So I'm in my little cottage in Kingston, and a mongoose runs in the front door, runs down the hallway, like pauses, looks at me and my friend Emily, and runs out the back door, and we're just like, oh hell no, like. Sorry, this is on camera. Oh, heck no. And so that's just another example of, there are those instances too where you're like, this is just over the top, get me out of here, I'm done. So luckily, I was working at this time with a Jesuit, a quirky, wonderful Canadian Jesuit named Con Mulvihill, and we were coordinating once a week a retreat for Jamaican students, and it was on discernment. And so every week on Wednesday afternoons, I would watch this 30-minute documentary about a photographer who worked for National Geographic. And he was like famous for getting fantastic photos. I think they all are, but he was like especially famous. And so he had this whole thing about how like if you want to be successful, you have to put yourself in the place of greatest opportunity. And you can't guarantee that you're gonna like get the winning shot, but that you have to set yourself up there. And so this whole documentary like followed him around as he would like hammock and like sleep out in the trees and like try to get a photo and then like not get a photo, and he'd pack everything up and be like, okay, well, I'll try again next time. And I was like, what? Like that's how the most successful National Geographic photographer works? And so this was super helpful for me because here I was thinking I was gonna like stick the landing, and I was filled with really what felt like dread and despair because I'm living in Kingston and I'm like, I'm wasting my time. My brother, my older brother, who is like in finance, he actually told me like, I really love you. I don't know why you're doing this. I think you're wasting your time. Maybe you should come home now. And I was like, thanks, Mark. So I didn't come home, but I did start to think more about what was I going to get out of this year that I was spending in Kingston. And there were two things. One was that, I started drinking coffee, not really because I needed caffeine, but because it was a morning ritual that I started. So I would sit on the floor, and it was tile floor, and it was awful in my kitchen. And there were like grates in front of my door, and then I would watch the sunrise over my cinder block wall that was topped with barbed wire, because on the other side of it was a maximum security prison. And so I would watch the sunrise, and I would pray. My prayer became like, please just help me to be present to the fact that I am here today. That was it. There was like no greater help. There was nothing. It was like, help me get out of bed today. Like, let's try this. And so I started to sort of cultivate those kinds of practices of trying to be more present. And one of the most vivid memories of my life was when I was walking back from tutoring 16 and 17-year-old boys who were below a first grade reading level, and I was doing one-on-one reading recovery tutoring. And I was walking back, and I closed my eyes for like 10 yards. And I can still feel like the sun on my skin. I can hear like everything that was happening in the city. I can smell the lunch that was being cooked at the school. I remember so vividly what this was like. And I realized that those were the kinds of things that I was going to need to do. That it wasn't going to be like, stick the landing and like, ta-da, you got it. But it was going to be in these small moments, sort of collecting clues and figuring out. So eventually I applied to master's programs. I applied all over the country. My mom was like, you don't have to do the hardest thing just because it's hard. As I was like about to move off to Seattle, Washington, knowing no one, having no funding for my program. She was like, you don't have to do the hardest thing because it's hard. Do you all hear that? I feel like I needed to hear that when I was a senior. You don't have to do the hardest thing just because it's hard. So I came back to Boston College, and I did a whole bunch of stuff, and that was also mayhem, but in a much more constructive way. And so when I was leaving, I got to work on all these wonderful programs, and the last program that I was going to get to be a part of was the Camino course. So the first time that the Camino was being walked, I was flying with the students. We were starting in Leon. We were walking to Santiago. It was going to be about 300 miles. And so I had my master's diploma, and my mom and my sister I have a lot of siblings. My mom and my sister were leaving in their rental car, and my sister, who was like 17 at the time, waves out the window like, congratulations on your master's, have fun in Europe. And I was standing, I will never forget this moment, barefoot on the porch of my house on Wallingford. You know where Moogie's is? There's like a street over there, Wallingford. Great street. Moogie's is better. You should go there. They don't pay me. So she's like waving, and she's like, have a great time. And I'm barefoot, and it just hits me like a ton of bricks. Like, I now have a master's in theology. What? And I'm about to fly to Spain to walk 300 miles with a group of BC kids. Also, what? And so I got there, and it was like 4 or 5 days in when we were finally walking, and I wasn't like coordinating anyone's schedule, and I wasn't managing, the check-in at the hostels or the way too much money that I had like hidden in my pockets. And it was finally that I got to just walk, and I felt it like bubbling up inside of me, and then I just was like crying. And I was walking next to another wonderful Jesuit, Father Tony, who's from Texas. And I looked at him like as I'm crying. Oh, so I didn't tell you this. So at this point I had accepted a job teaching at a high school. If you had told me even 6 months before that I would be teaching at a high school, I would have been like, you can leave. I had no intention whatsoever of teaching at a high school, but I had really wonderful mentors who encouraged me to kind of try it out. So I'm walking, and I'm crying, and I'm like, how do you do this? And he was like, what are you talking about? Like, one foot in front of the other. And I was like, no, how do you like do something that is scary, and you don't know if it's the right thing, and it's not what you imagine for yourself? And so simple, but he was like, have you tried praying for the students that you're going to teach? And I was like, why would I do that, right? He was like, they're gonna need some prayers. No, so I started to pray for the students that I was going to teach, and it completely shifted everything about what this next step was gonna look like. And it was no longer like just about me, it was about like what I could offer and what we could build. So my last example of this is when I was deciding to come back to BC and to do my PhD. So I had, at the end of my first year teaching, the first year of anything is really hard. Also remember that. Don't let that be your judgment. The first year of everything is hard. So end of the first year, I had gotten in touch with some mentors from BC who had been my teachers in undergrad and grad school. I contacted 4 of them, and I was like, I'm thinking about PhD studies, not yet. Like, do you have advice? all this different stuff. And so they got back to me. They're like, cast a wide net. Like, look at all these places. Contact these people. And then I started like settling into my life, and I was like, oh, I like this. Like, you know, I have friends here. I'm like coaching this. Like, and so I just completely let it all fall off the radar. And then it was December 28th, I remember, because it's the day after my birthday, and all 4 of them reached out to me, and they were like, hello, like, where are we sending these letters of recommendation? I hadn't talked to them in months, so I had to pull together my PhD applications. Tom Groom doesn't know this, he accepted me. I had to pull together my PhD applications in like 2 days. They were due January 1st, most of them. And I ended up with multiple offers on the table, which is just a blessing. And so I got to decide to come back to Boston College. And I think that the thing that I have realized in all of this, mostly because Karen asked me to talk about it and I had to think about it, was that it's just the truth, was that I, for the longest time, thought I had to like stick the landing, but I've slowly realized that through these different practices and this way of praying and this way of being, I've constructed what are like really lovely bumpers for my bowling lane. So I just get to be like this really happy bowling ball. So like I have these bumpers constructed, which are, Karen was like, where do you see God in all of this? And I was like, what do you mean God is like all of this? Like, this is the ground of everything. And she was like, you need to say that. They're not going to get that from what you're talking about. Okay. And she also was like, could you talk about the things that you do? And I was like, you mean like go to church? And she was like, yeah, you go to church every week. That's not normal. And I was like, thanks, Karen. No, but I do. But it's a practice that I have cultivated that it just is a place where once a week, at least, I'm guaranteed that I'm going to like sit still and be quiet. And that's really important. And I don't do that enough. And also like running or teaching group fitness or whatever those things are. Like, it's not that every time I do these things, I'm like communing with the divine and I come home with an aha moment and I'm like, yes, thank you for that kernel of wisdom, Jesus. You know, like it's not like that. But it's learning to kind of like cultivate this disposition to be receptive to those opportunities when someone who you know and love might say to you, like, why don't you try this? Or why don't you do this? Or stop that. And you're more willing and able to hear those things. So anyway, if I were to give you a piece of advice, you don't need it, but build yourself some really good bumpers. Like, being a bowling ball is so much better than being a gymnast. One, I've never been a gymnast, so I'm sorry if you are, and you're like, no, it's not. But you take the pressure off. Like, you live into the decision. You make the best of what you have when you have it, and then like you realize this is not exactly what I want. You bounce off the bumper and you kind of course correct and you go back towards the middle. There's no, at least for me, I no longer have this hope that I'm gonna like stick the landing. Like, I don't care if I land anywhere. If I just kind of keep rolling with it, that's what I'm aiming for. So I hope that maybe it'll take the pressure off you guys a little bit. Like, just kind of live into it, lean, like go there. And the worst thing that happens is like a mongoose runs through the living room and you're like, yeah, okay, time to reevaluate. So anyway, that's my little bit of. So I would like to now introduce to all of you Brendan Carey. So Brendan is also a graduate of the class of 2012 and a Massachusetts native. He is the youngest of 4, all of which went to Boston College. During his 4 years, he participated in the Appalachia program, the Agape Service Immersion program, studied abroad in Sydney, Australia, and led Kairos with me. It says Megan, but he graduated with a degree in communications and is now the digital marketing manager for some hotel properties. He currently lives in South Boston, loves dancing and brunching on the weekends, and recently started taking improv classes.
Thanks, Megan. Just want to say I've learned so much from the two of you in the past 25 minutes. So as Megan said, my name is Brendan. And I just want to get these 2 quotes out there, because if I end my talk and realize that I did not say the quotes, you guys would be like, I don't know what he was talking about. So the first is that, and I don't know which professor said it, because I did not have said professor, but my friend did. And it was the professor's description of heaven. And it was not that, it was kind of like that heaven and hell are essentially the same place, and you decide who goes, like, who's there for you in the afterlife. So the amount of love that you surround yourself with, that whoever you accept their love or you put the love out to them, they'll be there with you. But if you don't welcome any love into your life, you're going to be alone. And to me, that made me feel so much better, because I struggled with my faith growing up, and I was like, I don't know if I believe in like heaven and hell, and it just gave me a bit of a clearer mindset of how to live my life. And then the other quote, coming not from a professor, but from my very wise mother, is that you get the most out of what you put the most into. And I've learned that kind of the hard way. But so I'm just going to go a little bit further back than they did. But when I grew up, I came from a very Irish Catholic town in Massachusetts. And for me, religion and faith were very synonymous, and to me it just seemed like a routine that I went to a Catholic school, I went to church on Sunday, blah, 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 read the Bible, like read from the Bible, and I kind of just, I learned the routine, but I didn't really absorb any of it and didn't really get anything out of it. And then when I went to high school, I went to BC High. I don't know if you guys have ever heard of that, but I went to BC High, and there I, same thing, like faith to me just kind of pushed to the side. I was struggling with my sexuality at that point, so that was kind of on the front burner, and my faith was on the back burner. Then when I came to BC, I was still following this like routine. I'm the youngest of 4, and we all went to BC, and I got here, and I don't know what happened, but I just started being myself, and I just felt very comfortable around, as you guys know, this community is very welcoming, and I just started being myself. I ended up coming out at the end of my freshman year and really just like found my voice. And then I started kind of like I love your bowling ball analogy. Also, I'm a gymnast, so rude. But no, I'm not. But I kind of just started like trying everything. And I did the Appalachia program. I decided to study abroad, and I really just found I was making more and more friends, and all this love was coming into my life. So again, just populating that heaven that is I'm headed towards. But I, sorry, I lost my train of thought. So yeah, bowling ball, tried everything. And then I came, I came out to my family, and they were very welcoming. And then graduation hit, and I was like, oh shoot. I'm leaving this like wonderful community of welcoming people. I actually said to Megan when we were standing over there watching you all walk in, it's like infectious. People you just walk up, you walk into a room, and you are guaranteed to see one of your friends. And that doesn't really happen outside of BC. I mean, Boston's very small, so you do run into friends, but elsewhere, I hear you don't. So I'm never leaving. So anyways, my faith since college has been pretty strong. I don't really go to church all the time, and I don't pray all that often, because to me, when I was younger, I used to pray for things, and now I don't pray to ask for anything for myself. I really only pray, and I am not trying to make myself sound amazing, but I really only like pray for other people, because like I don't think that prayer is really just gonna like get you a guaranteed thing, but like if it helps, it helps. So yeah, so I don't really go to church, but my faith is very strong, and for me, faith is just all that interconnected love that I have. And I have all these different friend groups. I'm actually very fortunate that my best friend from BC ended up marrying my best friend from home. So now my friend groups are the same. And I did not plan that. They were not supposed to meet at that party. Yeah, so everything was going pretty great. And it all led up to actually a year ago last Thursday, my dad actually passed away from a very rare cancer, and it was very sudden. But the weird thing is, I mean, yes, I am like heartbroken and I miss him, and I'm heartbroken for my mom. But through it all, it was just very eye-opening to me how much love I have in my life and how much he had in his life. And the wake was, I was so tired. We were standing for like 8 hours, and people said like, this is the biggest wake they'd ever been to. And he was someone that I idolized because he allowed so much love into his life, and he would put out so much love even if he didn't get it back. So that's kind of something that I aspire to be. But even in this past year, like, that hasn't affected my faith. I'm not concerned about really where I'm headed. And then one other thing that I wanted to mention, and kind of going off of what you were both saying, is don't ever measure yourself against where your friends are or where your siblings are. Being the youngest of 4, 2 are married, they both have kids, and I'm like, all right, well, they got married at 26 and whatever, and I'm like, when my dad passed away, I realized he did not realize, he thought probably his dad is still alive, is turning 100 this year, and is like the healthiest person ever. And so he always bragged about his great genes, and this just came out of nowhere. So he did not know that he was only going to live half as long. And something I've learned is like, treasure every day, because you really don't know how long you have. And so don't measure where you are at in your life. Just be concerned with if you're happy with where you are. Because if you're not, go find what's will make you happy, because you deserve to be happy for the rest of your life, whether that's a year, 5 years, whatever. I hope you all live longer than 5 years. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut it off there. Yeah, so I just, like, leaving BC, it is going to stink, because, as Megan said, it doesn't get better. But no, I'm just joking. But no, but what you have here is going to stay with you. You're just not going to walk into every room and see it. You're just going to have to remind yourself that it's there, and then you can always come back to it. So stay in touch with each other. Yeah. Oh, and one quote that I do kind of want to leave you with is actually a quote from my dad. Carrie Ann, you're not allowed to mention this, but so when my dad was in the hospital, that's my cousin, sorry. When my dad was in the hospital, he was very happy to be a new grandfather, and it really broke my heart that he was not going to get to live to see all the rest of the grandchildren. So I'm kind of the creative one in the family. So I asked him if I could turn him into a children's book, and he was like in love with the idea, so I asked him if I could put a little quote in it. And his quote was very simple: love each other every day, because I have been loved by my family every day, and it has made for a wonderful life. So I just really hope that you all do that, and that you all have great lives. And it will be better, don't worry.
Thank you so much to our 3 wonderful speakers. We're going to open it up for questions right now. So if anyone has anything on their mind, just shoot up your hand. Any takers?
Can we ask them questions?
One over there.
How do you guys keep up your relationships if
Can you repeat that?
How do you keep up your relationships, given that you're spread out all over the country and all over the world, and not in the same room all the time? Question was, how do you keep up your relationships when people are spread across the country geographically? Do you guys want to start?
I could give you one. So I was just really lucky that my freshman year I met the girls that would become my roommates for forever. And so we have a WhatsApp. So we have a WhatsApp group that we update almost daily. So they all went on to become medical things, like doctors. 4 of them are doctors. One's an occupational therapist, one's a nurse, and then there's me. And so every day they're like, one is she's getting her MD tomorrow, and we're all going to her wedding next weekend. So weddings help, but I think that if you really do prioritize those people and those connections, it's not as hard to keep up. I mean, I'm only 6 years out, so I don't know. You'd have to ask somebody who's been out longer, but it's not as hard to keep it up if you all value it. Like, I have visited each one of them individually, and they've been I was in Jamaica, one was in Houston, New York, Chicago, Colorado. Like, they're all over the place. And I think that as long as you're committed to prioritizing those relationships with each other, like, you're not going to disappear from each other's lives. And WhatsApp helps.
Yeah, it's certainly not easy, but if you put in the effort, it's very easy to stay in touch. I don't use WhatsApp, but we use just group messages, group texts. There's definitely certain friendships I have where I can go like 2 years without never talking to someone, and you just pick up right where you left off, and it's not like you have hard feelings about, you didn't really lose touch. But then there's other people that in other cities that it's very easy. Actually, it's much easier nowadays to stay in touch. My brother, who's 8 years older than me, doesn't have a Facebook, and so I don't really know how he would keep in touch, to be quite honest. But he doesn't even save anyone's phone number in his phone. My number is not, it's just, I've seen it pop up. It's just the digits. So, if it's easier than you think.
For me, as someone who didn't go very far, it is still, you're exactly right. Your world shrinks, and although I still work at BC, it's a very different place to be in Hillside and not kind of have the same senior class that you're accustomed to seeing. And I'm very blessed that I live at home with my family and my wonderful girlfriends in Boston. But it was very strange to me that all of my roommates, like my 5 guys I lived with and the 6 girls across the hall, are not in Boston, which was pretty crazy. And it was something that I had to really reconcile and pick up the phone and call people. And one of my best friends, we kind of figured out that our commutes were at the same time, and we just called and called and called. And every morning I'd start my day talking to him. And so just figuring out how you can stay on the same schedule with people. And I think one thing, Father McGowan one time gave the last lecture, and he's a statistician. He talks about risk. And he talked about taking the risk to call your friends, even if they don't call you back all the time, or taking the risk to love people who don't always reciprocate it, and I think you guys talked about that first year is tough, and people are in a lot of different places, but kind of taking the risk to, even if they don't call you back, keep calling, keep those relationships and friendships up. And that's something I think that's helped me, is to just call and call. So.
Also, just to add, so I know nowadays we're just very quick to text someone, because it could be just something small or big. You can do like long paragraphs, but a call goes a very long way, and leaving a voicemail goes a very long way. Like last Thursday was the anniversary of my dad's passing, and I had a lot of people reach out, but one friend who we hang out every so often because we both have very busy schedules, but he took time out of his day to call me, and I couldn't answer it, but he left this very lovely voicemail. And now I just think of him, I already loved him so much, but now I just think of him in a very different way, that I think I could count on him for anything. So just call people once in a while, because it makes a huge difference.
Okay, well, wonderful. Thank you so much for everyone who came out to this Agape Latte, and thank you so much for a wonderful year. Could we give one more round of applause to our wonderful speakers? But also, as John said, for everyone at C21, all the people who really like make this happen, like that's really the blood of the program. Elizabeth, Tom, Karen, Megan, everyone involved really are the ones who are able to bring us this. I know a lot of us are seniors here, but that doesn't mean that we can't see all the Agape Lattes on C21 and kind of keep in touch with the community. So once more, thank you so much, guys.